Welcome everyone to another inspirational episode of Voices for Tibet. I'm your host, Karma Tensum. I'm with the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation. On this show, we are now expanding this show to a new subsegment called Sharing the Tibetan Culture. And as the title would suggest, this is all about sharing the wonderful Tibetan culture, different facets of this culture that I've come to know and love over the past 20 years. One reason for doing this is that it is in line with the mission of the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation. We believe that if we share Tibetan culture and raise awareness of it here in the West, we are directly helping to preserve it. On the other hand, my best hope is this, that some of you will actually learn something from this amazing culture, that it will teach you some heart lessons, some lessons that you may find useful in your own life. Today, we are going to talk about a quintessential Tibetan art form called the Tibetan sand mandala. And to talk about this unique form, I have a really special guest, the person who created the first sand mandala here in the West, Losang Samten. Losang Samten is truly a remarkable person. Between 1984 and 88, he had the privilege to be an attendant to none other than His Holiness Dalai Lama. And it was actually His Holiness who told Losang La to head west and present the first Tibetan sand mandala here in the West. And since those early days of 1988, Losang La has been doing exactly that, showcasing sand mandalas, showcasing Tibetan art, trying to teach about the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy and culture. Thank you so much, Losang La, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Kamala. Thank you so much to letting me the chance to participate for your show. And this is extraordinary, giving me a great opportunity to sharing some of the information about the mandala, and especially how we done mandalas on the West. So thank you so much.
Right, Losang La. And, I'm going to delve directly into our mandala, but even before I do that, I'm so excited to be talking to the person who did the first sand mandala. So can you sort of just go down memory lane and tell us a little bit about what that experience was like? It must have been a huge privilege.
Oh, it was, Kamala, was really, I will give you a little bit about background how that happened. So
Okay.
1987, when His Holiness came to United States, he had been coming to before that many times, and there was he was a Western Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist monk. And his name was Barry Bryan.
Okay.
And Barry and his partner, a Greek, and asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That year was that they opened the Tibet House here in New York City.
Oh.
And so the Barry knows about His Holiness, and His Holiness also know Barry. He had been taking lots of videos. His Holiness teaching in Bodh Gaya, so forth, so on. And so the Barry was a very artist, in a way, very activist for Free Tibet.
Okay.
So His Holiness asked to His Holiness, can you giving us a permission to create a sand mandala in display in the United States?
Okay.
And at the time, I was in the meeting too, when I had that conversation, I was standing right there too. And I can tell His Holiness a little sort of like a unusual, sort of never done sand mandala in the public like this.
Right.
And he didn't say right away yes or no, because that was not our tradition in the first place.
True.
Sand mandala or the mandalas are only created during the ceremonial and religious, spiritual purposes, rather than a demonstration for the publicly.
Right.
So long story short, and then His Holiness said, "I'll think about this, and Barry, I'll let you know." And so and then His Holiness had thought about it, and I believe His Holiness think this is a good good in a way because so due to the what's happening in our Tibetan culture in
Right.
Tibet in many ways. There's also a chance to share our Tibetan many different reasons. So he received the permission.
Okay.
And so therefore, and at the time I was in India, of course, and my monastery and his Holiness Dalai Lama's blessed that, and so I came March of 1988.
That is
So,
such
so
a
there was a something, and I have no idea. I never done that publicly, so I have also like a mixed feeling for doing this.
true.
But overall was really, I don't have a word to describe. Was an extraordinary success event in New York
Yes.
City.
Yes, absolutely. And then since that time, of course, there's been Tibetan monks and cultural ambassadors showcasing this art. But it's incredible to know that you started that. But we're going to come back to this Tibetan sand mandala. And my first question is going to be so simple, Losala. For viewers listening in, what exactly is a Tibetan sand mandala and why do Tibetans create them?
Well, that's a great question, Kamala, and I will try to put as much I can to a simpler way. In a way, mandalas are very important spiritual journey in the Hindu tradition, and of course in Buddhist and special Mahayana Buddhism and special Vajrayana tradition. Mandalas are such a key images are practitioner
Yes.
whom they are going to receive the empowerment to
Mhm.
definitely need the mandala, and also during the meditation for the journey to the enlightenment, mandalas are very, very important in a sense. So there are numerous mandalas, and so in a way, mandala is represents a lot of different things, but in a sense, it's like a pillar of the Buddhist tantric practice. It holds in the mandala.
Mhm. And then in Tibet, traditionally, like here, of course, we do it at universities, museums, but traditionally in Tibet, when were typically sand mandalas constructed? When did a community usually call upon and do a sand mandala?
Well, first thing is, let's say, Kamala, I would say like this. So, since 1988, commonly we use this kind of art in the West, and especially United States, called a Tibetan sand mandala.
Right.
But the traditional we call a particle mandala. Particle mandala. They
Particle
have
mandala.
particle mandala.
Yes.
That's have been using in India, and they're still will be using the terminology called a particle mandala. So any particle can be create the design of the mandala. But somehow native tradition, Navajos, and the sand art. So that influences in the here in the West. So in the beginning, they in a way people can understand a little better, so they will call a Zen mandala. But then answer your question, Kamala. So in the tradition in the monastery, for example, my monastery, any monastery, or in general speaking, mandalas are created during the empowerment.
Okay.
So some of the special the higher level tantric practices and has to have a mandala to involve.
Okay.
And the mandala involve the creating the mandala or mandala. For example, let's say there are 4 different types of mandala: mandala of body, mandala of concentration, mandala of drawing, and mandala of particle mandala.
Yes.
So any of those are important construction or be there during the empowerment, and the disciples has to receive the empowerment through the mandala.
Absolutely.
So that's mainly they create the mandala during the empowerment, and also a lot of ceremonies annually they create the mandala just for the spiritual purposes rather than publicities.
Right. And Losna, thank you for that. Now we are going to try and learn a little bit more about the Tibetan sand mandala. It's really going to be very simple. We are going to be trying to learn mandala 101. Of course, none of us viewing this, I cannot assume that everyone has received an empowerment. So what we are going to be sharing is very, very fundamental. I'm going to try and screen share a compassion mandala. Osala, is that, did that screen share? Okay.
That
So
looks
then,
good, Kamala.
okay, so then with this is a compassion mandala, or a mandala dedicated to the Buddha of compassion. As I understand it, at some level, a mandala is also the depiction of a Buddha's abode or a Buddha's paradise, if you will. So going right from the center of the mandala outward, I'm going to request Losang to briefly guide us through a mandala 101 lesson. So here I'm putting my cursor right in the middle of the mandala. Losang, can you please tell us what this innermost circle represents?
Oh, yes, Kamala. This is a mandala, generating mandala, Buddha of compassion mandala. In a way, that's very true, Kamala. It is a mandala represents home for the deities of Buddha of compassion. So the center of the mandala, what you're seeing, in a way, this is a two-dimension level of the blueprint of the palace of the mandala of compassion. So this can be done three-dimension temple, have been done, create like a three-dimension temple in Tibet or many, lot of places in the past. So what we're looking here is a blueprint of the two-dimension level of the home of the Buddha of compassion. So in the middle of the design, in a way, there's a lot of circles and a lot of designs. So what you're looking inside, there's, you know, of course, the four direction, and there's an inner circle, and inside the inner circle, there's five. Well, in a way, I will say that
Yes,
eight
there are five.
lotus. Yes, eight lotus petals. Looking at this, divide into eight
Yes,
sections. It's called
yes,
the
eight
eight
lotus
lotus.
petals.
Exactly. Eight lotus petals are represents. It's called the Java Ringa, means
Right,
the five Dhyana Buddhas.
right.
Five Dhyana Buddhas are Virachana, Ranasambhava, Amoghasiddhi, Actopia, and Amitabha. So these are the four designs, or include the five designs that represents are such for most important the high level Buddhist deities called five Dhyana Buddhas.
Okay, excellent. So here we have, so right in the center, this is representation of, perhaps in this mandala,
Buddha of compassion.
Buddha of compassion, and then surrounding him, there are the four other Dhyani Buddhas, or the wisdom
Exactly.
Buddhas. Okay,
Exactly.
moving
And
to this.
then
Yes,
right, and then out of four circles. So looking here, the blue area is east. Mandala
yes,
have a more likely mandala have always the four directions.
yes.
In this case, the blue is the east, yellow
Okay,
is the south, white is west,
west.
and green is the north.
Okay, this is
These are, yeah, these also the five colors are corresponding with the Java ring of five Dhyana Buddhas.
absolutely right. And
Yes,
each color represents one Dhyani Buddha. Yep, that is excellent.
exactly.
Also,
Very
a quick
true.
question, surrounding these, like, are these like, do they represent the walls of the palace?
Oh
What are
yes,
these?
in a way, it's architect aspect of there's a wall and the
Okay,
decoration for the outside the wall. But
okay,
but the more than that, here is looking in this image not as a physical beauty, but each design has a many layers of the meanings
yes,
here, which I earlier sharing the five uh, five colors are five Dhyana Buddha, and also the five colors are, let's say, the five elements: the blue
yes,
sky, yellow earth, white water, green air, red fire.
right.
And then outer ring and the outer squares are square. Those are Kamala are angels and dakinis,
All
dakas
right,
and
right,
dakinis. Those are the dakas and dakinis.
right.
There are 16 of them, but
Okay,
another way to, as a spiritual philosophy point of view, is these are from there to the out. There's a six parameters:
right.
generosity, morality, so patience, joy for effort, concentration, and the wisdom. So that's the meaning of their course too.
Right. It's so interesting that in this mandala we have all these layers of meaning. So we have like what seems like an external meaning and then layers of inner meaning that is so profound. And then, Losang, just outside these walls, so to speak, we have this wonderful greenery looking area. What do they represent?
These are represents in the architect aspect of Kamala. Those are the gates, four
Okay,
gates. The
right.
mandala have a four gates,
Four gates,
but
yes.
yeah, here what we're looking is like a lie down all the gates inside like a flat, but we're taking off the roof and looking down from the sky, looking down sort of. That's how we lay it out. But in a way, the four gates, out
Right.
of four gates, and then whole blue, the green area, all of this like a as a ordinary life. Those are the gardening.
Right.
At the temple or the palace in outer ring, there's a beautiful garden, and the garden is surrounded by lots of ornaments and things like
Yes.
that.
Yes, and that's so beautiful. And then just outside that, there is this ring of lotus petals. These ones.
That's right. There's a
What
64
do the
lotus
lotus
petal.
represent?
In a way, the mandalas are inner mandala and outer mandala. Let's say divide into two. Inner mandala inside the building, which we're talking about the 8 lotus petals.
Yes.
Entire whole mandala sits on the lotus. That lotus has a 64 petals.
Oh,
And one hand look at it is a lotus, and then the Vajra ring, and
yes.
then they call it, and the outer 3 rings are like a protections. They call it
Yes.
protections.
Yes, the
So
Vajra ring.
yes, Kamala.
Yes, so this, I was just showing on this map that if this is the lotus circle, then this circle here, that's the circle of protection or the Vajra ring, right?
Vajra ring, right? And then uh, last ring or is called the wisdom. Sometimes they call it wisdom ring, but the color goes a 4 color shifting into like a yellow, like a yellow, blue, red, green, yellow, blue, red, green, all year round. So
Right.
they call it sungur, sungwe kolo. So we could say like a protector for the mandala.
Absolutely. And I can understand that fire is just so protective. So is the Vajra. All these are protective sunkhors or, like a protective layer.
Exactly.
Okay,
You're
so
right.
there you go. So we went from the heart of the mandala going outside right to the external fire ring or the protective layer. I know this was a really short explanation, but that was mandala 101, as I said. It's just a brief overview. And then I'm going to continue the conversation. I'm going to renew this conversation with Losang. So Losang, that
Yes.
was fascinating. I
Oh,
loved
thank you. Yeah.
recalling all this. The important thing for me to tell my audience is this, that, when you look at a Tibetan mandala and somebody gives you one explanation and then, but you will often notice that there are inner, deeper layers of meaning to understanding a Tibetan sand mandala. But
That's right.
Losang, to continue this conversation, for me, one of the most fascinating aspects of the Tibetan sand mandala or the particle mandala, as you sometimes refer to it, is the dissolution or the dismantling of the mandala. I've had the privilege to, be part of one or two of them, and the audience, in many instances, they are really surprised. Why would anybody take all this time and energy to create this amazing art using particles of sand? Sometimes it may take 4 days or 8 days, and at the end of it, you just brush it aside. it's just fascinating. People are surprised. Some have even tried to tell us that, in Tibet, you may not have the technology, but now there's something called spray glue, and you can
Right,
actually hold it together. So,
right.
Losana, can you please help us understand why do
Oh,
Tibetans dismantle a sand mandala?
I know, Kamala. This is everywhere I do send mandala, or and also any other artists have been doing a send mandala. So the last dismantle, always there's a space, have a no, absolute no room. People would like to see that is the farmers. And also a lot of people think about this is fascinating, and also some people think a little crazy. Why
Yes,
this artist have been working many weeks and now destroying, and what's
yes,
going on here? Which is not the that kind of culture is not here in the West. So in the Buddhist point of view, especially Vajrayana point of view, these the mandalas are very private, secret images.
okay,
So therefore, it's not necessarily sure general public to view this, because of some might, either misunderstood or misinterpretation. So that's the one reason. But another reason I think is it represents that everything is impermanent.
yes,
And also more from that, though, the mandala the sand or any particle and dismantle it, and there's a ritual carrying that the sand or the particle to the river and then prayer. And this is a perfect day for even today, Kamala. We're having this conversation. Today is the Earth Day,
all
Mother
right,
Earth
right,
Day. So
true,
therefore, this is a very perfect day to imagining, thinking this sand dismantle and putting back to the
back to mandala,
water is a very beneficial for the marine life.
right,
But
right.
I have lots of experiences about the dismantle and the conversation as I mean, unbelievable. Some of the I can sometimes I, be myself like this, and I thought about what I had a conversation about the dismantle for the some of my friends in here in the United States. I laugh myself a very yeah, it's a
True,
bring a lot of memory. Yes.
true, Losala. That is so true. For me, Losala, sharing Tibetan culture, I share it always with the belief that our culture is wonderful, that there are wonderful lessons to be learned from our spiritual heritage. As it pertains to the sand mandala, Losala, what do you think are some of the eternal values or the eternal lessons that one can learn from a Tibetan sand mandala?
Oh, it's a lot. It really a lot. Kamala, now I understood the vision of the His Holiness giving a permission to sharing the sand mandala or particle mandala to general public.
Right,
I fully understand that. Understand is in a way looking at the mandala and having a discussion this kind of in the schools, which I had a lot of discussions, and people, the students understood about unity and beauty of it, and compassion, interdependence,
oh yeah,
and as a many things we having a conversation today in the socially, it's a represents in the mandala. So there are so many values, but one unfortunate thing is this kind of unique culture in we Tibetan preserve over thousands of years, and it's a matter of time how long it's going to remain.
right,
That's the big question about. That's
true,
unfortunate.
true.
But so far, I have been doing a mandala in over 30 years in the United States and Canada, and travel a lot of places. But really, people felt, even though people have not much knowledge about Tibetan Zen mandala, but just looking at it, it felt tremendous relax and calmness, and eventually they understood why it's dismantling. For example, I would say one thing I will add for the dismantle, Kamala. Some
Okay.
of the people who are carrying a very deep emotion in their heart, something losing their friends and family, and for a while ago, and carrying that, you know, sadness. But when they came to see the dismantle, and they felt that sort of like a very relieved,
Oh, yes.
very relieved. I get each time when I do the dismantle, and the next a week or so, I receive a lot of emails about a positive what they felt to see the dismantle.
Right.
So its impact is enormous.
True, 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 true.
It's amazing,
Right, Losang. And
really
so
amazing.
true. And I'm betting that, if I had the time and both of us had the luxury, we could just keep talking about so many of your experiences. They must have been truly amazing being this Tibetan cultural ambassador for over 30 years. I truly want to thank you for that. But Losang, I want to take the canvas a little bit bigger on the Voices for Tibet program, shift away from the Tibetan sand mandala to the bigger canvas of Tibetan culture in general.
Yes.
And you just alluded to the fact that our culture is endangered. And as a Tibetan myself, I know that too well. My best hope, if we look at the current situation of Tibet, I'm really honestly not in a position to see when there will be a question to solving the question of Tibet. I'm not even confident that it will happen in my lifetime. But among my friends and among us Tibetans, we tell ourselves that even if we cannot have a country, let's try and hang on to our culture. Let's
Right.
try and preserve this Tibetan culture for as much as possible. But when I make this conversation, the first pitch that I ask myself when I ask people for support is this: that we have amazing things like the Tibetan sand mandala and other sacred art forms, but overall, taking a bigger picture, why is Tibetan culture worth the effort and the support of the world? In other words, Losang, as a Tibetan cultural ambassador, why is Tibetan culture precious?
Well, so many Kamala. For example, I will say it like this though. Few times I have a chance to participate mandala with in Arizona in Hopi land,
Okay.
and one of the Hopi elderly, and I have a conversation with him, and he hold my hands, and he told me that you lost your country, but you must preserve your culture.
Absolutely.
As like we preserving our own culture. We're struggling, but we're preserving. We try to preserve. You Tibet also do the same thing. That was a tremendous advice to me.
Absolutely.
And so relate to Kamala, your question is, Tibet and Tibetan culture and Tibetan message, loving kindness, compassion, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and this brought into the world tremendous hope. And so therefore, is the Tibetan culture is not just important for the Tibetans,
Yes.
but it is important for the world.
Yes.
So it's a very unique, very not the unique and wonderful. What I'm saying that because I'm Tibetan, it has people sees that, and so therefore it is extraordinary, and I always hope and prayer we Tibetan younger Tibetan also should see this value and preserve and learn.
Yes.
And also there's at the moment there's a tremendous support from non-Tibetans.
Yes, absolutely. That is so true. And then Perhaps my final question is this, Losang. So when I've had the privilege to travel a little bit in the country, not nearly as much as yourself, and at the end of a presentation or a pitch for Tibet, people who are moved, people who love Tibet, they will often ask me this question. So how can we support Tibetans? How can we help you to preserve your culture? Today, as a Tibetan cultural ambassador, I think your voice is very powerful. My hope is this, that this interview will touch, people's heart. So I want to ask you this question. How can people here in the West who have a love and empathy for Tibetans, Tibetan culture, and the Tibetan cause, how can they best support us? How can they best support our culture?
Well, I mean, so far for the Western world and non-Tibetans for supporting for Tibetan issue is as a government level or individual level is a tremendous, very thankful for us. The Tibetan issue is over 60 years, still so live because one thing is led by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and we depend our own courage. But along with that, you are non-Tibetans who are support for us. Now, this, even though when we're looking in our life, anybody's life, so much going on, sometimes we are really hard to, hard to, hard to think something involved with another issue, which I understand that, but please, the Tibet issue should not be done. So what you can do, what each one can do is one thing is we should learn about the Tibet.
Yes.
What is the Tibet?
Yes.
Where is the Tibet? What's the history of Tibet?
Yes.
What happened? What really happened in 1949? What happened in 1959? And these things are very educated yourself. And along with that, and then either locally or globally, whatever you can support politically or economically to support. We have a numerous organization and representative here in the United States. We have lots of Tibetan communities in each places in the United States almost, and I would like to each one to connect them and help us to not just Tibet issue is die in this planet.
Yes, absolutely. Losang, thank you so much. And I think Losang is absolutely correct. For people with a heart for Tibet, starting to support Tibet starts by knowing more about Tibet.
Yes.
And fortunately, the internet is there. So you can access information about Tibetan history, Tibetan culture, the politics of Tibet, what happened to Tibet in 1959. All that information is there. And then if you want to make a heart connection, as Losang has said, there are any number of Tibetan organizations, just like the one that I run. It's called the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
While we would be honored if you supported a child or an elder throughout, it doesn't have to be that way. There's so many Tibetan organizations. Two organizations that I always comes to the front of my mind is, number one is like the International Campaign for Tibet. That's based right in Washington, D.C., right, Lobsang?
That's right.
They do amazing work in trying to raise awareness of Tibetan issues. Their website is savetibet.org. And there's a wealth of information just on that website itself. And then I take this other situation of yourself being a younger person, maybe a student with the passion in your heart, but maybe not funds in your pocket. There's another organization, Losang, I remember Students for Free Tibet.
Oh, yes.
Activist movement,
Very true.
So even if you sort of want to take part in that, that would be so amazing. For Tibetans like Losang Samten, Karma Tensum, our best hope is that you will keep Tibet and Tibetans in your heart. Thank you so much, Losang, for that wonderful voice for Tibet. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Kamala, for giving me this opportunity to chat with you today.
Truly grateful.
Tashitele.
Tashitele.